Everybody, yeah.
Oh no, you repeated.
Yeah. Do it, Steve. Rock your body, yeah. Yeah. Mike and Steve are back. It's the improvement season. That wasn't too bad. We almost got that pretty good. How
I
you
was
doing,
gonna, I
Steve?
was, I was gonna do a beat for you in the background, and then you went down the. I don't know. It was a different song to what would work with my beat. So I don't know what it's called. But beatboxing, isn't it? Like I go like,
Mm.
boo, choo, boo. I don't even know what you could flip and do. Like I said last time, I'm not a musical person. Did you ever learn an instrument, Mike?
I did. I learned the cornet.
The cornet. How sounds pretty niche. It's not
Yeah,
like
it
a
is pretty neat.
recorder.
I think I was just in that situation where my best friend played the trumpet, and I think I was just heavily influenced by it, and I was like, oh, I want to play, a brass instrument. So I went down that road, and and then obviously later down the line, it kind of wasn't really a cool thing. It was quite niche, and so I was like trying to get out of it, but my mum wanted me to keep playing, and
Oh, brilliant.
yeah, so yeah, but I don't play it anymore, sad to say.
The cornet. I actually don't. I can't even visualize what it looks like. The trumpet, though, is the one where it's like really big. You need to have like big lungs, and it's like.
It's quite like a long, thin,
This is
like
the cornet, right?
no, the trumpet is like
Oh,
long and thin, like kind of yeah, long and thin, and the cornet is just like a condensed, shortened version of the trumpet.
so maybe I'm thinking of a saxophone,
Mm.
which is like the big one where you need like massive lungs.
Yeah,
So yeah, but like I said, I never played any instruments. So I haven't got a musical bone in my body.
you're more sporty. You're kind of yeah, you're sporty and athletic, I would say.
I mean, that was my background. That's all I spent my time doing. I was always good at just. I was never amazing at anything, but I was always good at sports, which was nice,
Mm.
I guess. And video games, I was all right at, which is like hand-eye coordination a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I do you know what? I think that's one thing I look back on at my childhood and slightly regret that I didn't play more sports because I was very much indoors. I didn't have any brothers or sisters, and I was kind of because I was also quite shy and introverted. I didn't have the confidence to go out and just play football. I don't know whether it was just me, whether I'm just making this story up in my head, but I never felt coordinated. I
Right.
wasn't an naturally athletic person, and so I think that combined with all those other things, I never kind of played sport. But
Yeah.
I wish someone had just said, "No, Mike, just go and do it,"
Yeah.
and forced me a bit more. But hey ho.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I similarly, although I played a lot, I kind of found my comfort in football and where I played, but I didn't really try other sports, which I wish I'd tried more. Like I was pretty athletic and good at like running mid distances, long distances, but I was always, for some weird reason, I wish, similarly to you, I wish I had someone, maybe like an older brother, who was just like, Steve, you're freaking good. Like, have confidence in yourself. I just never had any confidence. As soon as I lost that, I just went into my shell. And I remember, did you have the bleep test at school? This is a
Yeah.
core memory for me. I was like, the bleep test, literally, I'm made for it. Like, it is my thing, but I hated it. And I would avoid it whenever it came up because I just was worried. I don't know what I had in my head. I was like, it was almost like I set expectations of myself to be really good at it, and others would have that of me. And if I didn't do it, then I failed. So it was almost just like this performance anxiety. That's the way I would put it. And yeah, I had that the same on a football field. Like when there was no pressure, I was very good. When there was pressure, I just get this, like, I just pass it to someone else. I'm like, hey, you're
Mm.
better. I'll pass it to you. And then people didn't have confidence in me. So then when I did have it, they didn't want me to have it for long. And so I was better at defending because that was like, hey, I don't have the ball. I have to go get it. It's weird how, yeah, as a child, like my dad, if he heard this, he'd be frustrated because he felt like he was giving me the right sort of encouragement, but whatever he was doing was not, it was not working. You know, like everyone has their own, like we have love languages, which we've spoken about on here, but everyone has their own like way of learning. And then they also have their own way of like, I know we've spoken about it before. You do well, not being like told off, but encouraged
Yeah.
more so. And I don't, whatever my dad's method did not work with me at all. Whereas I think my mum, if she'd tried a bit more with that side of things, she just kind of left it to my dad. I think she'd have got more out of me that way. Or if I think of I've had like when I worked an office job, my manager, or one of my managers, he was really good at getting a lot out of me. I don't know what it was and what he did precisely, but yeah, it just clicked. You know, like how you just click sometimes. It's like, yeah, that's the kind of encouragement and advice I need.
It's kind of, you've got that one level where people can get you to do things, they bring the best out of you, but they might not be conscious of how they're doing it. It's just because that's what's worked for them. But that next level is the people who can like understand and flip between the two. They're like, this is the person who, yeah, does better from encouragement or not having external pressure. But then this person does a different way and they can flip. And I think if you can get to that level as a person, then you've like unlocked the cheat codes.
And we know that from coaching. Like you'll find some people, like I just mentioned, like I have to encourage or I have to like be a bit more critical with them, and then they're like, whereas if I'm critical with how I am with some of my clients who I can be straight talking with, others will take it completely the wrong way, and I'm like, I know I can't do that. I always side with the softer side first, and then if I find when I'm a bit harsher, they are like, yeah, I like that, Steve. They might even tell me, they're like, right, okay, we're going to lean into that side a bit more. But I think that's also why some coaches just don't work for some people, because it's hard if you're one way more inclined. Like I'm never going to be that incredibly hard-ass coach who's like almost like a bit black and white with it. But some people might really do well with that, and I'm just not that guy. So yeah. Anyway, random topic.
Yeah, but I think but now you could be if you needed to. Like you said, if you knew a client really well and you knew they needed they needed straight talk and they needed just like quite strict instructions, you could do that if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's just it might take too long to learn that that's how I need to be with that person, so it's not a natural way of being. But anyway, how are things on your end? How are you dealing with this heat? Have you got a fan on behind you, or you not got a fan at home?
Do you know what? Surprisingly, I haven't. There's a brilliant breeze that comes through this window, but it's almost so strong that I can't afford to have it open at the moment because you wouldn't be able to hear anything.
Oh
that
wow!
I would say.
Yeah, it's quite windy.
It is windy, yeah.
Which is nice, and I'm actually hoping for some rain, but looking at the weather this weekend, it's another increase in heat, which is not ideal.
Do you know what? It rained here this morning quite hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We haven't had that yet. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be quite nice.
Maybe that's kind of like the city vibe where London is in its own little bubble at the moment.
Yeah, London's always a number of degrees hotter than everywhere else as well, because it's just so industrialized, I guess, and like the pavements, and there's not that much greenery to it just holds the heat, right?
Yeah.
It's funny, if there's Americans listening, they will be like, I bet it's not that hot. It's not, but we don't have aircon. This is the difference. So I just have to say that. Although I do have aircon, and I would recommend anyone who's thinking about it in the UK, if they're like, I'm in Ireland, should I buy an aircon unit? Buy it. I've had it the last 2 years, and on these hot nights, it's just a complete game changer. I know for you, Mike, you used to live where you used to live, not your last accommodation, but the one before that, you had like almost like a literal cave, which is what you want, like cool, dark, quiet. But you haven't now. So how's the heat been for your sleep? You didn't mention it in your check-in this week, so I'm guessing you've been all right.
And do you know what? Sleep hasn't been affected at all because
nice.
I've got a fan, and just with the fan alone, that's been okay. It's not been too bad for me, which has been really good, actually. And again, with the windows open and things like that, it's been manageable. And again, good thing is about when you're in your own place, you can just wander around topless. And
you can. Well, it depends who's at home. I can.
Yeah, true. And it's so that's nice. Although this is the danger is when you kind of work from home, coaching or whatever, and then you also work somewhere else in the week. You sometimes forget yourself, because there's been moments when I've been in the physio clinic, I'm like, I just want to take my top off. And I'm like, I can't do that here. So damn it.
Yeah, your client might get the wrong idea. Like, was that a physio appointment? What's going on here?
Yeah. What have I paid for? Do I have to pay extra for this?
Yeah, I was going to say, you should charge extra for the topless service. So I've been using the aircon unit, and it's nice it even has like a timer, so I can like put it on an hour before bed. and then put it
Oh.
on for like 2 hours whilst I'm in, and then hopefully I'm asleep. But it's been so hot that it turns off, and then I wake up overheated, and I'm like, man, I have to turn it back on.
Mm.
So I think when it's of the hottest nights, I just need to leave it on the whole evening. But that's partly because I sleep in the attic or the loft, whichever you want to call it.
Mm.
And that just heat rises, it just absorbs whatever temperature is outside. And at the start of the week, I had the worst situation where I was sleeping with my swollen leg with the tattoo that was healing. So it was overheated anyway. And my artist was particularly communicative about wearing a what's it called, cling film over the top the first night, so I had to wrap it up in cling film, so you're just sweating like an absolute pig on that leg. So yeah, that was pretty revolting the next day, but thankfully it's healing up nicely now. But I still just can't be out. I have to stay covered. The worst is in the gym, because I have to wear trousers the entire time. So thankfully I've got some fairly breathable ones, but
Yeah.
Yorkies doesn't have aircon.
I saw, I can't remember what day it was, but I remember you posted on your stories, you were just like, the sweat was dripping off you during a leg session.
Yeah, that was actually even the worst of it was when I traveled over to Liverpool. I was on the tube and I was sweating, just like beads of sweat off. But actually, funnily enough, being bald and not having hair actually really makes that nicer experience, because you don't hold on to all the sweat like in your hair and then it's gross and whatever. Whereas for me, I don't know where it just drips off or like evaporates, and I'm just like, I feel like I just splash my face with water, and I'm just like, superb, this is great. But I literally, during my leg session today, I was looking into getting a sweatband. I was like, hey, there's a guy in my
Nice.
gym who wears one and he's bald as well, and I was like, you know what? Maybe this is the time I need to get a sweatband. Could look
Yeah,
pretty retro.
definitely. And did anybody like Krillin or did like One Punch Man? Did any of those guys ever wear a headband? I feel like they might have done.
Piccolo had his old like weighted apparel,
Yeah.
whatever you want to call that. But I can't think of. I know in no, I can't think of like a bald dude that had a headband. I'm thinking, was it like Tekken or something? One of those guys. They wore like their
Yeah.
headbands. But anyway,
On an interesting note, on the completely opposite end of the spectrum, I've been contemplating getting a hairband to just like hold my hair back, because it just like the sweat and the heat just makes it go pff, and it just gets really uncomfortable, and sometimes I just want something to like have it back, but I don't know, we'll
I
see.
don't know if that would. Your hair is so springy. I don't know how
It
it
is
would work, and it's not long enough to use a hairband yet,
not,
unless you're
yeah,
looking to grow it out. Or you
again,
just
I
need
don't
another
know.
haircut. You're probably at the cusp of needing a haircut, right? It looks like it.
Like this weekend it's probably going to happen, because it's getting like, yeah, I've had enough of this now, get off.
You just go to monk mode again. Join me in the bald head club.
Yeah.
It's a great place to be. But if you've got hair, live it up. To be honest, enjoy having it.
The downside is lots of people tend to say, "Oh, I really like your hair like that, Mike. You know, it looks quite nice, you know, curly and whatnot." And then it's just that little carrot on the stick that makes you go, "Oh, maybe I'll just keep it for a bit longer." And then I'm like, "Oh, no, I can't."
Well, yeah, you've got it. So how are you dealing? Otherwise, I think I saw on your story. Obviously, we checked in, and I haven't had a response from you yet. So I was interested to talk to you how
Waiting
you're
for
getting
it.
on. And yeah, I saw on your story today. I saw yesterday you were training quads and legs, and that was a particular area of my discussion we were in your check-in. And then today I saw you decided to pull the plug and jump into a deload.
Yeah, because so just like you said, I mentioned to you in our check-in that kind of my quad stimulus had been failing for a couple of weeks, and I kind of couldn't put it down. But then you assessed things, and you know, you pointed out quite rightly that my performance hadn't been great. You know, probably been, you know, scraping the barrel for a number of weeks, and just the accumulated fatigue in the quads. And I think the thing that had been clouding my judgment a little bit was that other things were going relatively okay. I think upper body was still going pretty well. It felt like it, at least. I felt like I was still getting some momentum, particularly from pressing movements. And I thought maybe it's just, you know, a blip, but it obviously wasn't. And so I saw your feedback on the week, and I thought, makes sense. And I was kind of erring on the side of doing a more lower body based deload. But then I woke up this morning and, well, I I didn't the alarm didn't even wake me up at all. Like I slept straight through, and I woke up and it was like normally it's daylight, but it's been getting a little bit darker, and it was notably later. I'd probably overslept my alarm by an hour and a half, and just
Wow, that's a lot.
yeah, I know. And
I wasn't expecting. I don't think I've ever overslept by that much.
yeah,
You must have been
and
pretty trashed.
yeah, and I looked at my phone, and my phone was going off, so I'd not heard my alarm at all. And yeah, and I just I've got a bit of like neck soreness, neck discomfort. That's not muscular. It's just like, when you get achy joints related to just like general niggles, fatigue,
Systemic
etc.
fatigue. Yeah.
And I was just like, do you know what? This is, whether it's coincidence or not, but this is a bit of a sign. And
Noceboed you.
I know, literally noceboed me. But yeah, so I just thought, do you know what? Hey, perfect time. Let's just pull the plug, deload, and then reset and go from there.
Do you normally do you normally wake up before your alarm, or is it very normal that you wake up because of your alarm?
I normally wake up because of my alarm on average.
Like, I know we spoke through signs of good sleep, and you're like, oh, nodding your head that is good. I do think an alarm waking you up generally isn't a good sign of great sleep. I think waking up just before your alarm is like, hey, that's your circadian rhythm. You're getting ample sleep, and it's your body's waking you up naturally. I think if your alarm is waking you, I'm like, that's a sign that you naturally, as you did today, would sleep through. And when you're really knackered, you clearly do. So it'll be interesting once, obviously, you'll get, today would have recovered quite a lot of sleep debt, I imagine. And so the next days, I imagine when you back off training, whether or not you do you ever wake up before your alarm, or is it always a case of waking up to the alarm?
Occasionally, but it's more the exception than the rule, I would say.
On the weekends, do you set an alarm or do you leave it?
Varies from time to time. I'm probably doing less of setting my alarm on the weekends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's always telling if someone doesn't have an alarm on the weekend and then they get way more sleep. It's not a case of, that might just be how your life is, and that might be what you have to do. And I know people that's like that, where they have to pay off some of that debt during the weekend, but I know you will be in a position where you'll want to not have to do that, so you can get that consistent sleep through the week. But yeah, sleeping through your alarm, it's funny. It basically forced you to have to deload anyway, and probably that's sometimes the best thing for people like us who will try and push until like we're forced to have to back off. And it wasn't an injury or anything; it was just no time.
Yeah, and do you know what? In those sorts of situations, it was quite helpful, because I think when I was listening to your feedback, I was in two minds. I was like, but I'm still quite motivated to train. I love to train. And it was kind of like, I was a little bit in two minds what should I do. And I thought, do you know what? I'm literally going to sleep on it. I'm just going to see how I feel in the morning. And then I'll kind of, go from there. And then obviously that happened this morning. I was like, oh, well, that's an easy decision then.
Yeah. Sometimes when the decision could be made for you, it is that little bit easier. Especially when you are, as we previously maybe were a little bit more like, hey, we've been training for a good amount of time. Your performance is somewhat plateaued. You're training at your limit. Let's just take a deload. Whereas now it's a case of, no. Let's make sure that we actually have earned that deload and we need to back off. And so you do have weeks where it's a bit of a grind and motivation may dwindle a little bit. It's certainly not something you need to rely upon. So yeah, making that call can be a little tougher, especially for someone like yourself, Mike, who just you just want to keep going. You don't like to need to pull back. But yeah. I think you have Thursday through Sunday basically off, I imagine, and kind of kick back in on Monday. And I think that'll just be the best thing for you. I'm in a similar boat in terms of, I think I'm going into week 13 next week maybe of this mesocycle. And so I wasn't sure if I'd even be able to. I thought the tattoo might force me into a deload situation too, because the travel to Liverpool, then that night's sleep is never ideal because you're in a new location. You have that like first night effect where the body's not able to get into deep quality sleep because it's like, hey, you're in a new environment. We need to stay aware predators, even though you're in a safe, secure place. Although I was in like the center of Liverpool, and there was like literally like a huge nightclub right by me, so I could kind of hear it. So that wasn't ideal. But anyway, so then I had that, and then the night of the tattoo, it's never a great night's sleep when you've had like a comprehensive 6 to 8 hour session of tattooing. You've just got like basically a huge limb, massively sunburnt is the way you can think about it. So you've just got this throbbing kind of almost pain. So your body's just not able to sleep that well. And then the next night after that was a little better, and it's getting a little better. But I was just worried that I wouldn't, because I was already quite deep into the mesocycle pushing the limits. I thought that might set me in a different direction, but I seem to have been able to hold on. So today was legs, and I built on my training from last week. So I beat my performance from last week. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Which is crazy, because when you're thinking about it, you've only had one deload, which was the Maldives, which wasn't really like a full-on deload, and that was kind of enforced because it was more of a holiday. So if you think about that, if you take that out of the equation, you've been training constantly since post prep, post season.
That is correct. Yeah, it's kind of crazy in some ways, and also like, I don't know, it's just such a good lesson that if you're on top of your shit, that you really can push the limits for a long time and you don't have to pull back. And yeah, I think almost the Maldives, like you said, it wasn't a true deload, but it was almost like a bit of a pivot. Mike Tusherda from RTS calls it like a pivot block or pivot week. It was almost like that, where it was just such a different stimulus. Although still hard training and still hypertrophic, it just allowed for a reduction in fatigue. It was certainly way less volume. And I also find if you're, we've spoken about this before, if you put in a new movement, even if you push that close to failure, I think you aren't, depending on the movement, because you're not so skilled at it, you're not creating as much fatigue. So one thing that I did have to do for my first leg training session this week, so I took the day after my tattoo, I did push, which was programmed. Then the day after that, I did pull, which should have been legs, but I was like, there's no way I'm training legs right now. It just wouldn't be smart. In fact, even training legs when I did the day after that, my tattoo artist, if he could hear this, would be like, Steve, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
But like, I just modified it so that I didn't train calves. Actually, I just trained my right calf because I was like, why wouldn't I? It's also the smaller calf. And then I modified my leg press so that I wasn't getting as much like hamstring to calf, less knee flexion, basically. Still a good amount, though. I watched the video. I was like, oh, that looks great. But that modification meant I wasn't as drained after 3 sets of leg press as I normally would be, just because I put my feet slightly higher, and I still took it to like basically 0 RER, maybe 1, but the fatigue cost wasn't as high. So that was very interesting, just where you can make small modifications. And this is something we've been talking about in your check-in, and something we were going to do, was like, hey, when mesocycles are getting stretched out longer, probably it makes sense to be more willing to make small variations to keep the SFR in a good place. So it's almost similar to Menno likes to do his like single muscle group deloads. And this is something we were thinking about doing for your quads, basically. It's almost similar to that, where you might the deload might be, hey, you've been running X movement for 3 months. It's fatiguing the hell out of you. You kind of plateaued, maybe dropped a bit of performance. Let's just see if you're not feeling muscularly, systemically fatigued. Let's just try rotating something in and see if we can start progressing with that whilst everything else kind of stays the same. Or like it's similar to like taking a light session, but just an exercise rotation. So anyway, that's some rambly thoughts.
No, and because something that's been getting me thinking, because have you slightly tweaked your back training a little bit, in the sense that there was, because I saw on your stories and then obviously your post today where your pronated machine row, you're kind of not flexing over as much and you're keeping your torso more straight, focusing on a bit more, not more on scapular retraction, but I don't know, you're just keeping your torso a bit more upright. And I was wondering if that you changed that for any particular reason.
There was a change. So this is how well you know my training. So obviously I was suffering with that like golfer's elbow. And so I made some modifications. So one of them was moving towards pull-ups versus doing a neutral grip pull down. And then I was doing the prime extreme upper back row. Well, the prime extreme row I was doing for upper back twice a week. And I was just finding it a bit niggly. And so I rotated in the strive row. And I was like, I really want to bias the upper back with this. If I allow my chest to move forward and I round my mid to upper back, I'm involving teres, I'm involving erectors, I'm involving more of the mid back and the musculature there. Whereas if I keep my torso upright or slightly back, then the things that get most stretched is all the upper back musculature.
Mm.
Whereas if I then let that go forward, it then the thing that gets stretched is then distributed elsewhere. So I was just being sure to bias the upper back a bit more with that. And yeah, it's been nice. I haven't had that good of like a pump in my upper back for a while. Probably part of that's novelty though, because novelty is just, it just does that, right? You do something slightly differently. It's similar if you eat the same food all the time and then you try something different. It's like, oh, that tastes really different. And then you get used to it again. And it's like, it's just that adaptive accommodation.
Yeah, it also made me think of like, the weight loss in the first couple of weeks. It's like you don't pay attention to the scale very much in the first couple of weeks because that big drop in scale weight is just due to lots of things, water weight, etc.
Yeah.
So it's only after those initial few weeks that you focus on what the scale is doing.
Yeah. One other thing that I've changed, just because it's on mine because I did it today, was sissy squats. So I've been playing around with loads of different variations because all the body weight ones, if you're relatively fresh and strong, you can get them to be quite high rep. And it's sometimes challenging to load them as well. So I tried obviously I call it like the Dr. Mike one, where basically you remove the feet from the situation and you just kind of go from the knees, which people can look over to my Instagram and look at my basically most viewed reel, because Mike's in there and it's a bit of a weird exercise. It just, I don't know, the algorithm likes it and people like it. I think there's way more valuable content on there, but anyway, I digress. Then obviously we've been doing like a almost assisted sissy squat where you use the cable column and then like use a straight bar or rope and kind of lean back into it, and you get a really good range of motion and stretch with that. But even that, you can get pretty good at it and get quite high reps. So I saw Andrew, my client Andrew Parkins, if he's listening, shout out to Andrew. I saw him doing hack squat, sissy squats. And I don't know if I saw him doing that and then I tried it, or I already had tried it and then he reinforced me trying it. I can't remember what order it was. But obviously, what's his name? Why have I forgotten the bodybuilder that's like incredibly well known for it? It's not Lee Priest.
Tom Platz?
Tom Platz, that's the one. Yes, Tom Platz is well known for his like hack squat, sissy squats. And I tried it in the past and it just kind of felt awkward. But I think the reason is it's so much harder. Like bodyweight sissy squats, you could easily, for us, like we can get 20 plus probably. Whereas on the hack squat, I'm struggling to get like 12 reps. So I think it just felt so different. So I just, started incorporating like a couple of sets of those and a couple of sets of then body weight ones. What I do find with using the hack squat is I can just sense it doesn't stretch the rec fem as much versus doing it body weight. I don't know exactly why, but I can't quite get my hips in a position to be able to stretch the rec fem as much, but it's a really, really challenging movement and pretty damn effective. But you have to be quite strong to be able to do it, I think.
I have noticed that from just watching you generally, that you're just generally a strong dude, I would say.
I appreciate that.
Because, like, again, if you look at your stiff-legged deadlifts, like you're doing 200 now with those, and like just things like ab wheel rollouts and like some of the other bodyweight stuff, it like you make it look easy, but then, and it might just be because I'm awful at it and I'm not a strong dude, but I just look at it and go, oh, damn, I'm not as strong as Steve, nowhere near.
Oh, yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I'm not strong at pressing. I will say that much. I've never been a good like overhead flat presser. Not strong at that. But lower body lifts, I've always been pretty good at. Pulling, always pretty good at. So yeah. Anyway, that's.
I wonder if it's always that kind of debate about limb lengths and dimensions. Like the thought that crossed my mind just then is like, you're relatively tall. Have you just got long arms, and so you've just maybe biomechanically not set up for pressing? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to say it's because I have that slap tear. That definitely doesn't help. But I was weak before I had that. So, and I also don't think I've got a very impressive chest. Like it's just not very big. This is something me and Pascal would compare with. He's a very strong bench presser, or he definitely was in his powerlifting days. Stronger than me by quite a stretch, but the chest was never a strong muscle group for him.
Mm.
Like visually, it was never that muscular. It just wasn't a strong muscle group. So yeah, that's where there's a lot more to strength than simply muscle size.
Yeah, and I think it was so apparent in your most recent episode with Jake, Zach, and Josh. You know, whereas like strength is, if you're really looking to improve strength, it's different to hypertrophy. You know, and I think when you're in that beginning phase, you get a bit of everything, but then as you get advanced and you're really trying to eke out those, you know, those advanced gains, it's like it's a different ball game. Specialization in those areas, they're very different.
Yeah, the specificity is so key for strength, whereas for growth, it's just you have to be a certain level of specific and then be able to overload over time. But like you don't have to, be as specific as what it is for strength. Well, on that note, I have Greg Nichols coming on the podcast next week
Oh,
or this week on people listening to this, and he's done a huge article on volume, which I'm barely anywhere near through, but already it's freaking great. Like he
really?
has picked apart the subject so well, especially looking at the meta-analysis from Pelland, which is like weekly set volume. Josh Pelland, I don't know why I'm saying Pelland. Josh, we're on that level, and yeah, it's just people are inappropriately comparing things. Like you can't actually take that research and because some people are saying, hey, if people are getting stronger with such low volume and then they cap at like 5 sets and past that point, we're not saying there's any point going above that for strength. Why are we seeing in a hypertrophy that all the way up to like 40 sets is seeing quite continued growth? And it's because they're making inappropriate comparisons between the studies there. So anyway, the article's like a book. Greg literally says that. I'm going to have to I've already spent a good hour or two reading it, and I'm like I said, I'm like maybe a quarter of the way through. So it's a great article on Stronger by Science. Anyone will be able to search that and volume and they'll find it.
Yeah, definitely you've sold it. And because I also, coming back to the podcast, because I saw that you've brought Coach Kasim's podcast recording forwards. So that's coming out soon.
Yeah, that'll be out. Well, by the time this is out, that'll already be out. And basically, it's because we touched on Jonathan Warren, who is growing on YouTube. I was on his podcast. He did a recent video, and he has been critical on people's like chest training, and he has a certain model that he uses to, I guess, assess whether or not you're moving in a way that you should be for developing your chest. It has things to do with like compression and expansion of the chest, the rib cage. I can't admit to know it well at all. I have a very rudimentary understanding of it. But anyway, he was critical of Joe Bennett's chest training and kind of broke it down. And so I just wanted to get Kasim's views and perspectives on training the chest. Obviously, he's very known for, and N1 are very known for their perspectives on training the back. And I just remember from a long time ago, Kasim was quite critical of people arching and retracting the scapula for training the chest, saying that that might not be ideal, especially like rigid, strict retraction. So that was actually in line with some of the things Jonathan was saying. So I wanted to just get Kasim's perspectives on that. And I was like, hey, it's a hot topic right now. Why don't I bring that one a little bit forward? There's another like 5 episodes in the tank, but they're with people where it's not like their hot topic. Obviously there always is an element of you talk about what's in vogue, but it's more about their journey and them as individuals, or like a more what's it called, evergreen content, such as episode 500, which has been recorded,
Yeah.
but I haven't actually recorded 500 episodes yet. I was like, I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, because that will actually, I think, if ChatGPT got it right, because I couldn't be bothered to work out myself, I just asked ChatGPT, if I'm on this episode, when will episode 500 be? It said the 28th of December. So I think it'll be the last Saturday of the year will be
Oh, that'd
episode
be
500.
special.
Yeah, so that's quite cool.
Yeah, that'd be super special, and pumped by the guests that you've got on as well. That was
That's
just
part of why I had to record so early, because I was like, to line up 4 potentially different time zones is challenging. And Mano obviously is traveling all the time. So basically just talking to them, it was like, hey, we need to get this done sooner rather than later. Otherwise we won't be able to. And obviously those guys came on like episode 100, 105, 110, up to like 130 doing roundtables. And they were just so good. I go back to those semi-regularly and I'm like, this content's gold. So it was great to be able to have those guys on. We only actually covered 2 of my questions, which I knew it would be that way. But there's so many like dives that we went into that I thought were really interesting. So I'm excited to release that. I'll have a bunch of teasers coming out from like the start of December, basically, where I'll do a bunch of teasers for it. So it gets a good amount of views and stuff because, yeah, it deserves it, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think I was just so, when I saw that on your story, I was just so, yeah, like, this is awesome.
We have
So
some
good.
great episodes coming out because Greg coming on is a big one. Booking Brett Contreras in. He's got some different perspectives on training at different muscle lengths, particularly for the glutes. So some stuff that's not been spoken about publicly. So I'm excited to kind of get him on and talk about that. And there's already like a bunch in the pipeline. For example, Stan Efferding, that's in the pipeline.
Yes.
I've got that recording in the bank. And he said he'd come back on too. I had a great chat with him, actually. He's a really
Awesome.
nice guy.
That is exciting. That's great.
Any
So
other
good.
news on your end, though, Mike?
Well, this kind of merges into our current affairs slash what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it might not be counted as strictly bodybuilding though. So you'll let me know. So, one of my clients in the US. So apparently, Selena Gomez has released her own brand of Oreos.
I saw this.
Yeah, I was like, what is going on?
She's not the first celebrity to do it.
Oh, is she not? Oh.
No, there's been some others. And I think some celebrities have collaborated with like McDonald's to do like their meal. So like, this is my order from McDonald's, and you can like be like, oh, I'll get the Jay-Z, whatever it is. I can't remember who did it. But yeah, that's a thing. People have got their own Oreos.
That's
you know what I
crazy.
saw, Mike, that excited me today? I think it was yesterday I started seeing it, but in Japan, I don't know if you've seen this. My reels are quite often full of Japanese like tourism content because I'm wanting to go there, and obviously anime stuff. But there's also food, and in Japan they have quite interesting food. And one of the things that they do is the sandwiches that are like sweetbread with then I don't know, like some sort of cream and then fruit inside. So M&S in the UK obviously have just launched this sandwich, which is like brioche type sweetbread with like some cream cheese, strawberries, and it's like a single sandwich that you can buy. I am
Oh,
definitely interested in trying that.
I have no idea what that would taste like. Cheese and strawberries
Cream
in the
cheese. So like
oh,
we're
okay.
thinking, like we had bagels in the US and they were cream cheese, right? And we had like
Yeah.
sweet ones. It'll be something I imagine to that sort of ilk.
Wow. Hey, if you get it, let me know what it's like, because yeah, that is really interesting.
M&S do just the best food, man. We don't
They
have one
do.
near us, but there's
Oh,
one in Battersea, and Charlotte has one near work, so she sometimes picks up some bits and pieces. But I would love an M&S close by because they just, yeah, it's a bit more expensive, but sometimes you get what you pay for, right? So
I would definitely say, with regards to hot cross buns, M&S are the best out of all of the supermarkets, without question.
yeah, they do a good job.
Yeah.
My
But
industry news or hot topic, I've already done it. It was the Jonathan topic on the expansion and compression model and people critiquing others and how they move. And I think the biggest issue with it is that it's a little bit too black and white, as you know, as a physio. And actually, your perspectives on it would be incredibly interesting because I think it is a model based, well, obviously it's based around the body and that sort of thing. But I think you'd be fairly heavily critical of it because I think it tends to think that asymmetries and things are like not normal, quote unquote. So anyway, I saw someone did a reel and they broke down Dr. Mike's like fly, and it was like, oh, one shoulder's slightly higher than the other, and that's terrible. One foot's ahead of the other, and you shouldn't have to be like that. And it kind of was like, I think you'd look at it and be like, yeah, I don't agree with this breakdown. I don't think that that's bad.
it's really funny because certainly in the clinic I work at and in the physio world, asymmetry is the normal,
Yeah,
symmetry is abnormal. Because if you look at any sport, apart from things like swimming, which again is the anomaly, most sports are asymmetrical. Most things in life are asymmetrical. So you're never gonna. Yeah, symmetry is the abnormal element. So yeah, I will watch it actually because yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he says.
yeah, you might have to dig into. I'm not going to try and word it, but yeah, look into just YouTube, Joe Bennett
Joe Bennett.
chest training, something like that,
Mm.
and Jonathan's video should come up. And like I said, I've been on Jonathan's podcast. I've watched quite a bit of his content. I quite like him as an individual, and I'm actually trying some of the things that he's talked about with chest training specifically. Because I think there is some value there, and I think it's clear that some people are finding heaps of value there. I just think it maybe has gone too far potentially in one direction. But anyway, I talked to Casim a little bit about it, and he had a great chat actually with Ben Yanes. That the listeners will know of Ben Yanes. You might have seen it. Well, you're not on Instagram, Mike, so you are, but you're not really on there.
I am, but not.
His stuff would have popped up in your feed if you were on Instagram very much, because he's got hundreds of thousands of followers and is right within our niche. He does similar stuff to Casim, but maybe on a slightly easier entry level, I would say. A little bit dumbed down for people like us, maybe. Whereas Casim is quite high level. Anyway, should we get to questions? I don't know.
Let's get to questions.
I'll let you ask the first one if you've got them up, because I do not.
Let's just get them up. I haven't got them up.
Neither of us. That's what she said.
So
wait, did that work?
We've still got to go a little bit far back, haven't we?
Just a little scroll. Oh wow, did we not even get to the ones?
I don't think we did. So the most recent question I've got is from _Manji Machine, who asks about contest prep.
Yeah. Okay.
So in contest prep, as performance decreases, how do you determine the balance of intensity and volume?
I don't know why this question's throwing me. I think it's the way he's asked it and has set it up. Yeah. I think the way I would think about this is, what do you do if performance decreases during prep? That's how I'm going to base it. Otherwise, my brain's going and is struggling with the final parts that he's kind of put into the question. So performance is bound to decrease at some point during prep. If you can hold on to your peak mass performance at the end of your contest prep, I'm kind of like, oh, what's happened? Like you're maybe 20, 30 pounds lighter. Your physiology is completely different. What's going on? Something's changed. You either really decrease your range of motion, change your technique, or you really weren't pushing very hard during your off season. So as you get smaller, that's just bound to happen. And it's not indicative of muscle loss. It's just, hey, you're in a calorie deficit, so you're not in a good position to perform. Physiologically also probably not as well recovered as you could be if you're on more calories. Your sleep probably isn't quite as good. Stress is a little bit higher. And like I said, you are actually fundamentally quite a different person. You don't have as big glutes anymore. You don't have as thick a chest. Like your actual kind of mechanics have changed. So it's expected to lose some performance. I can't put a hard number on how much performance to lose. But what I tend to like to see is, if someone does drop performance, you reset things and then they maintain that. For me, it's a red flag when they're dropping performance precipitately, like week on week on week. That's when it's like, wow, something needs to change. Because ultimately, what tools do you have to pull on? You can pull volume back, but you need a certain amount of volume to maintain muscle mass. And you can pull back on intensity, but then again, you need to be close enough to failure to produce a hypertrophic response. You could increase food, but again, you've only got so much time to get them lean. So it's like, that's why having extra kind of time in the tank is useful. So it kind of depends on the context for the person. But I'm not worried if someone drops a small amount of performance and then is able to hold that over the next weeks. And I don't suddenly pull volume or pull intensity or rotate that movement out. It's very much a bit of a case by case. And if it is a big drop in performance, then that might be indicative of, and it's consistent, maybe like you drop a lot of performance in 2 sessions across the week, it might be worth deloading at that point if you have the time for it to mitigate some of that fatigue, or potentially dropping in. I'll sometimes do this where I'll drop in a refeed the day before that hard training session to kind of help bolster it, if you have the time available to be able to do that, but you don't always. So that's at least my process of thinking when performance drops during a prep.
Yeah.
Or any diet.
I think it's just like, again, not overcomplicating it too much. And also context is heavily dependent on this in terms of, you know, how long have they been going in their training? You know, how's their diet going? You know, like you said, how long have they got? How much time have we got? I think all of those factors kind of come into play, and you've just got to take it on a bit of a case by case basis. And I think the most important thing that you said was it's the magnitude and consistency of the drop, because if it's just a small magnitude and it's only happened, it's like a bit of a blip almost, then it's probably something that we can expect. Whereas if it's huge or it's happening consistently, it's like, right, something needs, like you said, something needs to change.
Yeah.
So
Nice. Right.
cool.
Next question is from Carl_Hansen00. In honor of the WNBF first timers / novice show, and sorry, this is like a little bit behind now, right? That was held this weekend. Obviously, it wasn't this weekend, but anyway, how do you help your clients reverse out of their first shows?
So I think one thing, so initially we want to gain at a certain rate when you're coming out to help recover. And I think also one thing that came first to my mind is that I think, and this came out kind of especially after some of our discussions of your most recent season, is that I think your rate of gain coming out of post show, post season is can be a certain preference, because you might have someone who can gain at a slower rate and is able to stay a little bit leaner, whereas someone might need to gain at a faster rate and might just want to gain at a faster rate. So I think there's a little bit of individual variability there, depending on where that person is, mentally, physically, how they're feeling, that might dictate the rate of gain. But definitely in that first few days, first week or so, we definitely want the person to be gaining at a sizable rate and to be in a calorie surplus. And then after that, we want to kind of then rein it back a little bit to make sure that, again, that they're, still gaining weight, still recovering, but again, the rate at which is going to depend on, what their preferences are, what their recovery rates are. And again, you, Steve, have your subjective ratings, which is, libido, energy, sleep. I'm blanking on some of the other ones, but having that subjective
Hunger,
food focus, that's it. So you've got those as well to kind of help understand, like, how are they recovering as well? And then you've got that plus scale weight plus the client feedback, and then you can use those to then moderate, their calories and nutrition after that.
Yeah, I feel like we've answered a similar question before. Just like I just know I went on a whole ramble talking about this on a previous improvement season. And I think you added some really nice like context and nuance to the process of coaching this. So I won't add too much of that. I'll just fundamentally, I think about someone wants to get, what did he call it? He called it a reverse out. So I first of all don't like a reverse. Assuming someone's finished their season, reverse dieting has no place. Reverse dieting is small incremental increases in calories, but maintains a calorie deficit. So I certainly want to be a maintenance plus. So you said surplus, absolutely a surplus at this point. We want to not just regain muscle, or if we lost any, or gain muscle. We want to regain body fat. And really it's a process of, we can't gain that back too quickly because there's time also a component of recovery, but there is also a body fat element here. And we want to get to a person's lower end intervention point of body fat, which for most males will be in and around that lower teen 10%. And for most females, you can add like 7%, 8% body fat on top of that. So they're in the high teens, low 20s to be recovered. And therefore, some categories will need more recovery than others, depending on how lean you got. And also just depending person to person, how lean you got. Also, the process of getting that lean. So how long was your prep? Because the longer your prep was, the more weight you've lost, probably the more recovery that's going to go on. So that's why you don't really want really long, hard preps, because then that chance of that recovery being real tough and not going super well is there. But yeah, basically you want to, over a course of weeks and months, get them up to that lower intervention point, not overshoot it, but get there as basically as soon as you can without overshooting it is kind of the goal there. But as you said, you can use that subjective feedback from a client to navigate it, because I might have two people in front of me and be in a similar surplus, so they're regaining body weight at a similar rate, but one of them, their subjective feedback could be all massively improving, and the other person, it could all be still in the red. And I'm like, right, that person's still in the red. We need to like push on. Whereas the other person, as you said, hey, they might be like, hey, Steve, I feel all right. We could slow the rate of gain down. So it's being able to auto-regulate it based off that feedback from your client, and also just be aware of know your client, because some people post-show will go down the like just food reward route
Yeah.
and suddenly their diet is completely flipped, and no wonder you're hungry, no wonder you're food focused, because you're eating so much palatable food. Get back. So this is where it's just so important. I hate it. I see clients get just left post-show, and it's such an important time to navigate, because especially as a first timer, the chances of you not doing well during that recovery phase is high. More people probably likely to way overshoot their lower intervention point of body fat. And that lower intervention point, for those that aren't aware, is basically where your body's happy. It's as lean as you can be while still being healthy. And so you don't want to get up to 20% body fat and be like, oh, I feel good, but I'm really over fat and I'm not in a position to start dieting. It's not a great place to start your off season. You basically want to start as close to that lower intervention point as possible, so you've got as big a window of opportunity to gain. So yeah, anyway, that was my trying to be condensed answer.
You added some really great points there. No, I like it.
Next question.
Yeah.
Wait, is it you?
It's me. Anthony Pedri asks, prioritize face pulls over rear delt pec flies. I have a lot of pulling as I hit back twice per week and have one rear delt movement on my shoulder day.
I'm going to be fairly simple here. They're both decent variations for your rear delts. Use one. Once it becomes a little bit stale or you get bored of it, rotate in the other one. I don't think you need to really get much more than that. I'm not going to try and rank them on some sort of S to whatever D tier list. I just don't think it's going to be valuable. They're both decent tools to have in your toolbox. So that's as complicated as I'm going to get.
Yeah, absolutely. And often we're both fans of that. Hey, do you know what? If you've just said that you have a lot of pulling when you train back, well, your rear delts are going to be trained a lot with those movements. So, I think that's just something to never forget, that, you might not even necessarily need those additional posterior delt movements. If you're doing that because of preference, etc., cool. And like you said, Steve, there probably isn't a massive difference. Don't get too caught up in the minutiae. But otherwise, hey, don't worry about it. Like, could you put that rear delt work to more side delt work or something else? Who knows? So just something out of the box to think about.
Yeah, I always like to just say people are very familiar with not isolating the front delts because they get trained really well during pressing. Same thing applies to the rear delts with pulling. So unless they're underdeveloped, maybe your side delts are really developed, maybe you can reprioritize that volume, as it were. So great additional point. Then we have Dennis Wijnia. Any experience with former overweight individuals with loose skin? With higher amounts of stress, there is a lot of water retention. Any solutions?
So I guess I don't have a lot of experience with very overweight individuals in this specific scenario. So it's a tricky one. I don't know if any thoughts immediately come to your mind, Steve, with this.
I do have experience with it, not personally, but I have had clients, and it's unfortunate because it's true. You are more likely to retain water having been formerly obese. You're going to have loose skin. It's kind of just a case of understanding that more than anything else. There's nothing I can think that you can inherently do to mitigate that. It's just you have a larger reservoir to store fluid, and you just have to be aware that that is something that's going to happen and make peace with that. It's similar to, if I was to put it this way, females have more often than not a menstrual cycle, and if they're of an age and healthy, they will have their menstrual cycle, and every month for a lot of women they will gain water. there's nothing they can do about that. It's just that is healthy, that is normal, that is to be expected. The thing to do is recognize it and be like, right, maybe I don't look at the weight that week, or I look at like a monthly average, or I look at a longer term average and take that into consideration. Similar here. There's nothing you can inherently do. It is your physiology. It's what you're, that's the card you're dealt with at this point because of previous history. And you just have to be aware of it and understand that it happens, and don't get caught up in it when it does.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything more than that.
No, but I think that's such a great point. I think it's about not trying to hunt or chase for magic pills and potions that in reality aren't gonna, solve anything. They might make you feel a bit better, or kind of, kids you into thinking it's making a difference, but in reality it's not. And just get comfortable with the fact that, hey, that's the situation, but it's not the end of the world, and it's not going to derail progress in the long run.
Yeah, it's just not getting caught up in it and accepting what your physiology and making peace with that. And like you said, it doesn't stop you losing fat or whatever goal you're trying to go for. So it's not a problem. Next question.
Yeah. So William DeVries asks, omega 6:3 ratio. I want flaxseed as an omega-3 source, but ALA has a bad conversion rate to EPA. 50 grams of flax per day too much? How much omega-3 per day?
Gosh, this is a question that has many different aspects to it. So anyway, my immediate thoughts go to when people ask me about supplements, there's a lot to know about supplements. And I have my go-to general recommendations for supplements, such as omega-3s. But the best resource to get this level of nuance and detail is examine.com. Yeah. They are not sponsored. They have no affiliates with any supplement companies. So they're completely unbiased, and it's fantastic. And there's loads of free information on there. So I don't think you can get a better answer from me than what they would be able to provide you. I am aware that like vegan sources aren't as efficacious for increasing or getting the omega-3s that we want with the EPA and DHA as it would be from an animal source. I believe, I don't know if it's called seaweed, but it's something similar to seaweed if it isn't seaweed. Have you got a name for it? No, krill is like a krill. Isn't that krill oil? Isn't that a fish?
I don't know. Yeah, krill is like plankton. No, it's not plankton. It's like a shell. No, I don't
that
know.
Probably doesn't count as a. I'm assuming if because they want to do it flaxseed, they're vegan. That's my assumption. Otherwise, if they're not, just get an animal-based source of omega-3s, and you're kind of sorted there. But yeah, it might be. It's not seaweed. I'm really annoyed. I can't think what the word is. But something similar to seaweed. People will be shouting it out.
Kelp.
It might be kelp. I can't actually. That's not doing it for me. It's not lighting up the area where I'm like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But you might be able to get something like that. So I want to Google it now, but I can't. I have nothing more than that, actually.
I haven't got anything to add to that at all.
Okay.
I think, but also, actually, even though I said I have nothing to add, I will add something, and that's, I think sometimes we can get quite myopic at trying to increase a certain like specific nutrient or vitamin or mineral when, again, just think like a balanced, well-rounded diet. And I think, I think if we're aiming for that, then we really hit everything. We hit the main things for health. So I think, sometimes I think we get a bit too caught up in the minutiae when it comes to specific nutrients sometimes.
But we don't if you're a vegan, because they can't.
True.
They don't have a good omega-3 source, which is probably why he's asking. Algae. That's the one I wanted. Yes. But thank you for giving me some buffer time to be able to find the damn name for the source. So yeah, I would go for algae. That's the good source that you probably want to get as a vegan.
There you go.
That's the one I have Charlotte on. Yes.
Good.
So, next question.
I just realised we've got tons of questions.
Yeah, we have loads of questions, guys. This is great.
Right.
But we still have another half an hour, so let's
go.
Patrick Morris has asked, can you talk about how you train calves and forearms, volume, intensity, type of sets, and rest periods? That should be a relatively quick answer.
Yeah, of course I can, Patrick, because this is relatively easy. So forearms, I don't train them directly, and calves, I would say lengthened partials.
I had
So
to stop myself from not doing a joke. Don't train them directly.
and so
Sorry, I've thrown you now.
yeah, right. We're on calves.
Just the right one. Indirectly, sorry.
How do you know it's not? How do you know it's my right?
You're a lefty.
No, I'm not. So it is. But anyway, um...
You mean tennis? It's like Nadal, he has like one jacked forearm or arm.
Exactly.
It's just like
his when they X-rayed his forearm, like the bone density in his radius was like X times more than his left.
That's
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there you go. Same with me, maybe. Who knows? Anyway, so calves. Coming back to calves. So tend to always do a straight knee variation, just because that it will hit the gastroc the most. Gastroc makes up that diamond shape of the calf. So all of my calf variations are more straight knee biased, and they are executed in a lengthened partial manner. And in terms of intensity, I typically, just because calves recover so well, I tend to go straight to 0 to 1 RIR pretty quickly, and I'll stick with 0 to 1 RIR as long as possible. And volume-wise, normally for me, it's around 4 sets, 3 times per week. And that I've seen good progress from that, really, really good progress. And that's
Rest
it.
periods.
Oh, rest periods. Probably anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds. Maybe a touch longer than 30 seconds, but not much longer than 45 a minute.
My answer is almost identical. Funny that. Again, similarly, no direct forearm work. Calves, all straight leg variants. I will say I do most of my calf work single leg, just because I found, and you might find this yourself, Mike, or clients, especially if you do lengthen partials, you get pretty freaking strong. And I just found it to be a little bit much. So I basically, so my rest periods are really short, because I just go like right leg, left leg, right leg, left leg, almost like just interchangeable. And I'll do like maybe 3 sets like that, and then I'll do 3 with both, because now they're pre-fatigued. And sometimes I have to increase the load a little bit, but quite often I can keep it the same, and my reps don't get too high. Depends on the piece of machinery. But yeah, otherwise I have a little bit more volume than you. I do 3 times a week, but I tend to be closer to like 5 sets, just because, I don't know, my calves just suck. Although they're getting better. And actually, my tattoo artist complimented my calf. He was like, we can't put the tattoo there because it will get distorted because you have quite a big calf muscle. And I was like, dude, you've made my week. You don't even know it.
I was gonna message you when you said that on your story, and I was gonna say that's like the ultimate compliment for like a natty bodybuilder.
Yeah, compliment the calves. Don't tell me I have big arms.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about the calves. Right. Next question. So, Alawiz asks, is it better to calculate protein need based on weight or lean body mass, considering a 0.8 to 1 multiplier in pounds?
So I would say, because for me at least, 0.8 to 1 is probably on the slightly lower end of what I like people to be at. But this is coming from the context of competitive bodybuilders, people who have ambitions to compete or want to maximize growth. And we have reason to believe being higher in protein is generally a good move for that. And also dieting, it's a good idea to bolster against muscle protein breakdown. And so given that context already, I'd go for body weight. And then in addition to that, people suck at working out their lean mass because you don't have a good way of estimating it often. So I think it's just easier. It takes out that math to just be like, hey, let's just use total body weight. My only caveat to that would be for very overweight individuals. If they are going 25, even 20, 30% body fat, then I would take it closer to I wouldn't necessarily try and exactly work out their lean body mass, but I'd certainly not multiply it by their total body weight, because then protein just gets a bit excessive at that point, and they could probably do with the calories going to carbohydrates or fats at that point.
Yeah, no, well said. Nothing really to add, Your Honor, on that question.
Let's get to the next one then, because then we
Sure.
can blast through some more. Christopher Alham. Christopher Alham. When performance is dropping... Oh, okay. Have we answered this already? When performance is dropping during a prep, what would you look at first, and when would you dropping volume be something you would consider?
I feel like we've kind of answered this with the previous question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have. So I'll go to the next one. Aurora Mattison. What are some things you've changed your mind about in nutrition and training in the past few years?
Oh, good question. I would say one thing from a training perspective that comes to mind is that, well, a big one is obviously when to deload and what we're currently doing now. So obviously probably a year or a couple of years ago, we'd typically be like 4 or 5 weeks, and then like, oh no, man, got to deload after 5, 6 weeks, or 6 weeks, woo, pushing it 6 weeks. Whereas now it's like, hey, if you're feeling good, if you're still performing well, still got big drive to train, and everything else is trending in a good direction, keep going. Oh, go on.
Could I just add a little context to that?
Yeah.
I think it makes it sound like it's like, why would you have deloaded when you really didn't need to? I think so often is what we did was forced to deload.
Mm.
And by that, I mean everything to failure, even if we didn't need to at that point, and ramping up volume to a unsustainable amount. So I just want to add that caveat, because I think sometimes I think that, like what you said there, I'm like, yeah. But then I'm like, oh, we can't have been that silly to have done that. And it's because we were like, no, we're kind of pre-planning almost a deload, but we'd force like volume into an unsustainable position, I think.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, and I think that's good clarification for sure. And the only other training thing, as well, oh, it's gone out of my head for a second.
My training one, I can easily say, is a shift from perfect and pristine technique and like perfect form always to a bit more brute force. It makes me think of it's called the midwit meme, if anyone knows of it, where basically it's like, I don't know, I can't remember exactly how it looks. It's something along the lines of, initially you're a bit of a dummy and you just go bro, and then you like are super nerdy and you think something else, and then you come back when you're enlightened and you're back to what you used to think when you were a bro, basically. So I feel like it's a little bit like that. But that would be my training one, is just like just being a bit more aggressive and less fragile and less worried about perfect standardization and things like this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I definitely have that. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, isn't it? But anyway, I'll digress. Nutrition, again, I don't think much has changed. I don't think on a nutrition front, I've changed my mind on many nutritional elements. I don't know if you have, Steve.
I have one that might bump something else for you or give you some brain space to think of one. But rates of gain, I think, unfortunately, I go through a little bit of a roundabout here too. When I first started going through like my first mass, I massed really quite aggressively and hard. And then I kind of got a bit burnt. And so then I really slowed down my mass gaining phases, where I would try and gain very, very slowly. And that just didn't seem to work too well. And then I went back to a more assertive rate of gain, but more of a middle ground. And now I've come a bit closer to that very slow rate of gain. And I think it is a case of, I don't think that slow rate of gain was necessarily not reaping benefits and rewards. I think, one, I was staying too lean, or I was leaner than I maybe should have been for the best performance in the gym, and I didn't gain for long enough. So I was gaining really slow, but my kind of weight bound was like 5 pounds, and then I'd cut. It was way too small of a weight bound, because I thought there was something to P ratios, like being leaner was better. And then I just wasn't. And then after that, I think I just got impatient. So I think a lot of people gain a bit fast because they're, especially as naturals, because we're impatient. Because when we gain faster, we see that scale going up, and it's like seeing the scale weight go down. It is a bit rewarding to see it go up and see you filling out shirts, feeling stronger, but it's so slow. So yeah, I think rates of gain, I've kind of just shifted as new research comes out, as it should. You should update your perspectives on things. So yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to say
definitely.
something. I have something in mind for you nutritionally. I don't know if it is a change in mind, but let me see if I can bump something that you might be like, yeah, actually, I agree. Shall I go?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please do. I'm all ears.
So maybe trying new things and seeing a little bit more. I don't know if importance is the right word to that, but just being like, oh, I actually do enjoy eating out or
Yeah.
trying something different. And there's more to food than just function, if that makes sense. Maybe that's a slight one. Like in New York, just comes to mind.
Yeah, that's totally bumped something up. So that was my biggest realization from New York, I think. Just, and the word that comes to my mind is exposure. Just exposing yourself to different foods, different ways of eating, because something that I've found myself doing is kind of almost creating a bit of a story. And like I'd sometimes use the example of like a pizza where I wouldn't have had a pizza in a long time, and I would say like, I'm not fussed about a pizza or whatever. And then all of a sudden I'll have a pizza and I'm like, this is actually really nice. This is really enjoyable. And it's like, Mike, why did you just make up a story about pizza? You love pizza, go out and get it. So yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Steve. Just exposing yourself out. And do you know what? I also think there is a tremendous value in going out socially for the skill of being able to eat out as well, because I would also say that my my skill set of managing myself is probably not as good as it could be because I just don't put myself in the situation of eating out a lot. So it's kind of like, oh, it's all, it's something that because I don't do regularly, it's not natural for me to have to think about, there's only, I know it's easy for me to know that, there's going to be 400 calories in that, 500 calories in that. It's not something I do super regularly. So um, I think there is value to doing that.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it's great. And I think, especially in our bodybuilding space, it's so easy to get very comfortable just going about things. But it's as you said, it's not only the benefit to you for trying new things and actually enjoying it, but it's also then developing that skill set because inevitably, if you are rigid, I think I used this analogy before, like if you are rigid and then like a breeze comes, you're just going to snap. Whereas if you can flex and a breeze comes to push you off, you can just bend and flex with it and you can still survive, I guess, would be
Yeah.
that. So yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Totally.
Uh,
Nice one. All right.
Next
So
question.
Gourmet Paul asks, you have to get flat to burn fat. How much do you agree with this statement? Are depleted glycogen stores deep in prep a prerequisite to fat loss?
So if you have, I mean, yeah, I mean, there is definitely truth to it because if you've got glycogen, muscle glycogen available, it's similar to at the start of a diet, you're not really burning through body fat. You're just burning through like stored muscle glycogen and you're seeing a whoosh because you're getting flatter because you're losing the water weight. And so you need to be low in muscle glycogen, and you will be if you're in a calorie deficit. You're going to be low in muscle glycogen, so you can be in an energy deficit. I think it, I think it kind of isn't a useful thing to really think about because ultimately, to burn fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. You don't
Mm,
need to think about being flat. That's just a
mm.
consequence of being in a calorie deficit. So let's not get the kind of like horse before the carriage, as it were. Or is that the right way around? Anyway, let's not miss the forest for the trees. The truth is, to burn fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit. When you're in a calorie deficit, inevitably, you will at some point get flat. How flat do you get? That's a different question. There will be times when you're trying to get those final pinches of body fat off, you have to run pretty flat. But you might not want to run flat for too long because that is a sign you're obviously in a glycogen depleted state, and your training performance is going to start to suffer. And that's why refeeds can come in to kind of bring you a little bit back to life. But you're still fundamentally, the thing that's driving fat loss is being in an energy deficit. I think that hopefully gives context to that. I think statements like that are really, really true, but they can sometimes confuse people because they're like, you have to be flat to burn fat, but I thought energy deficit was the driver, and it's like that is the driver. It's just
Mm.
the thing that I think that statement comes from is that whenever someone gets flat, they're like, oh, I need to like have a refeed because I'm a bit flat today. It's like, no, 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 no. Do you deserve a refeed? Do you actually need a refeed? Because running flat is how you're going to be the majority of like a prep, to be honest, towards the end.
Yeah. This might not be accurate, but it reminds me of the famous line, which is like, it's like a finger pointing to the moon. Don't focus on the finger or you're going to miss the moon. It's like, don't lose sight of what the actual thing is, which is like, in this case, it's the calorie deficit. You know, it might be like, hey, the low glycogen stores are the finger pointing to the moon, maybe, but ultimately it's the calorie deficit. It's the moon that's the biggest thing. That might not be a great analogy, but it came to my head. And again, the only other thing that I would add would, and I don't know if I'm reading into this question in the wrong way, but I think sometimes, you know, remember that we're not gonna look our best all the time. You know, people might think about refeeds and, you know, they don't want to look depleted, you know, in a fat loss phase, and I don't know, just trying to hunt for like a perma peak look all the time and whatnot. It's like, hey, don't worry about that. Don't worry about looking. You're not going to look your best all the time. Just focus on the process, on, like you said, Steve, being in a calorie deficit. That's going to drive the fat loss, which is ultimately what we want. And then we're going to get to the outcome that we want in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not something I have a big focus on, like getting someone flat. That's never what I'm focused on. I'm focused on how they're looking, how's the body weight trending, kind of going about it that way. How's their performance, like those other metrics.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice. I don't know if your analogy will click for some people. I haven't heard of that point to the moon thing before, so I'm sure other people have, though I'm not normally very good with those. Next question is from natphysique_JC. Is it a viable strategy to start a cut aggressive in a mini cut fashion and then taper off as the cut progresses and body fat comes down?
I don't think one needs to necessarily, if someone is doing a conventional fat loss phase, I don't think there is a need to be as aggressive as a mini cut. There's certainly something to say like, hey, rate of loss can be quicker towards the start of a cut phase, but I don't think it needs to be at the level of a mini cut. I think I don't know about you, Steve, but I don't think it's necessary to go that hard that quickly. I think it's better to like, hey, just get a good rate of loss going and then just try and keep that going. Yeah, I don't know if I've missed another part of the question at all. As the cut progresses and then body fat. Yeah, and then again, thinking more in terms of, you know, rate of loss. So again, as the cut progresses in length and you've been in the fat loss phase for longer, you know, maybe not pushing the rate of loss as much, just maybe letting that rate of loss be a tiny bit slower potentially, particularly as someone gets a little bit leaner. Yeah, that would be my main thoughts.
I know where you're coming from with this, because my initial response was, yeah, you can do that. But there can be such a case of being too aggressive at the start, and a mini cut is on purpose. A true mini cut is meant to be unsustainable. But if you were doing like a 1% rate of loss, I think at the start of a diet, that could very well be appropriate. And my fundamental kind of first principles answer is your rate of loss, all things being equal, wants to be proportional to the amount of body fat you have to lose. The more body fat you have to lose, the faster you can look to lose it. So there could be someone that is like, and you might be able to lose a bit faster than might be ideal on paper, but only for a short period of time. So if someone is relatively lean, they might do a mini cut and lose at like 1% per week. But if they just run it 3 or 4 weeks, they're probably okay. Whereas if you're like obese, you could run 1-2% comfortably for weeks upon weeks, probably months, and then slow it down as you get leaner. Similarly, if that person at kind of mid-teens body fat, they might run a 1% for like a week or two and then taper it down to like closer to 0.5% if they're extending the diet longer than just a month, for example. So in short, the shorter you're dieting, the more body fat you have you have, the more aggressive you can be. But the longer you stretch out the diet and the leaner you get, the slower your rate of loss wants to be. So yeah, anyway, I kind of agree with them, but I think your nuance and context that you added is helpful for sure.
Cool.
Nice.
Right. So Set by Set asks, how's Mike progressing with the creamy? My go-to is 30 grams of whey, xanthan gum, sweetener, caramel calorie-free flavor drops. That sounds amazing. 300 milliliters of milk. Also Respin. What's
Respin.
Respin? Respin. Oh, Respin. As in
Respin.
what?
Don't you respin?
What do you mean? What's Respin?
Oh
No,
my
I don't
God, Mike.
respin.
You don't know. Did you read the instructions? Did you watch any how-to videos?
Not really.
Do you literally just do light ice cream and then you take it out and you're done every
I'll
time?
do the ice cream light setting, and then I'll do mix in with the nuts, and then that's it.
Okay. You kind of get a bit of a respin with the mix-in, but there's a respin function. Most people recommend, I've seen countless videos of this, where you do the light function, then you take it out, put a little bit of milk in, and then do a respin.
Ah.
Now, I tend to not worry about adding any milk, but if it comes out crumbly, I don't know if yours has ever come out crumbly,
Yeah.
a respin sorts that. But if you're doing mix-ins, you might get enough of a respin by just mixing everything in. But after the mix-ins, if it's still crumbly and it's not a great texture, then you might want to add a respin to your process.
Ah, because I've noticed that. I've been looking at it, and like, this doesn't look like ice cream. It looks crumbly. Like you said, it looks crumbly, and I'm like,
That's why.
there you go. This is game changing. So, in answer to your question, Set by Set, I am progressing, but slow.
And the calorie-free flav drops, they're just like, My Protein do like flav drops or like bulk powders. They have like flav drops. Have you seen those?
I've seen them, yes. Yeah.
Where they're like in a little pipette.
Yeah.
I hadn't used them for years. There must be like, I don't know, close to a decade old, but that's what I add to mine. I have like some, I don't know why I have loads of like peanut flavored ones. So like I add the peanut butter flavor, but honestly, it's just sweet once it comes out. I can't even tell you what flavor my creamy comes out as. I use vanilla. It's like vanilla Casian, chocolate whey, and then I put cocoa powder in. I add a banana, and then I add like peanut flav drops. So it's just like it's just sweet and nice. So anyway, but has it been improving?
It has been improving. It's massively improved. So the current, and again, shout out to Ash May, who sent me a really detailed recipe as well. I haven't tried it yet because I haven't got casein protein, but my current one is I've got two different recipes at the moment. So I've got my chocolate one, which is, I'm still on the chocolate mint protein powder. So it's chocolate mint with cocoa powder, sweetener, salt, xanthan gum, and a banana, and yogurt and almond milk.
The salt,
to that.
Yes. Set by Set needs to get the salt in there.
There you go.
I don't know. I'm calling him Set by Set because I know his real name, but I don't know if it's on his Instagram, so I don't want to give. I don't know if I want to say. Anyway.
Then my second recipe is banana whey protein with peanut butter powder, and then xanthan gum, almond milk, yogurt, and a banana.
So
which
one's
like a
better?
banana-y one. I don't know. They're just different. I quite like the banana one, to be honest with you. It's just the banana one's a bit sweeter.
Yeah, I need to try some different flavors. I just get so set with liking, like, that's the whole, like, you as a bodybuilder. If anyone looked at my MyFitnessPal, I think they'd just be like, what the fuck? Like, they'd look at my, like, ever since this start of this year, they look at every day and like, you just literally eat the same thing every day. It's like, yep, pretty much.
You could literally just do copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste.
That's what I do.
So easy.
Yeah. So let's see if we can finish off the rest of these questions.
Yeah.
Bit of a quick fire round.
So Deej_Jones_lifts asks, do you think neuromechanical matching is something we should be taking into consideration when training for hypertrophy?
I love that it's a quick fire round. No. Next. Have you even heard of it, Mike?
No, I haven't.
Dear listeners, this is how out of the loop Mike is. He hasn't even heard of neuromechanical matching. Have you heard of Paul Carter?
Yes, I've heard of Paul Carter.
Have you heard of Chris Beardsley?
Yes.
Okay.
I have,
they're
genuinely.
I think neuromechanical matching comes from probably Chris, and then Paul has like made it his baby a little bit. But they've both blocked me on Instagram, so I've not even really, I don't think I've conversed with either of them on there. They just decided to block me. So that tells you something. I don't know exactly what, but it tells you something. But no, I
There you
don't
go.
think it's something we need to worry about personally.
Sorry, listeners, for my lack of social awareness.
So you also agree with me that you don't need to take it into consideration because you have fucking no idea what it is.
Exactly. There you go. Easy answer.
uh, so Wellness Ralu has asked, I'm trying to bring up my delts, but my buys and tries seem to grow even from indirect work. How to eliminate them from back and push exercises?
So, I got a bit confused initially with
It
this
is
because I was like,
confusing.
delts, how can your buys and tries work when you're training your delts? So,
I would just say,
yeah,
how do I eliminate my arms from my push and pulling? Remove the delt situation because that's a confusing component of the question.
yeah, we'll take that out. So how to eliminate from back and push exercises? I think the thing is that you aren't going to be able to fully eliminate biceps and triceps from compound exercises. It's just a fact. Um, I think the only thing that you can just then manipulate um, is just not doing direct work at all. Just take out all direct bicep and tricep work and then just do your compound movements. And I think another thing that you could just look to do is look to maybe consider some more pre-fatigue, pre-exhaust type work. So you might do a lat or chest isolation exercise first before going into a compound movement. So you're making the chest itself, or you're making the lats the limiting factor with the movement potentially. You could consider lengthened partials maybe. So that again, it's just so like something like a chest, like if you're doing something like a Smith machine chest press, you might just do a lengthened partial so that the triceps aren't being as much of a, aren't coming into play as much. So I think those things combined in terms of, take out direct work completely, consider that, but more so think about pre-fatiguing and lengthened partials. And I think that'll be a good start.
Nice. Yeah, in addition to that, the only thoughts I have are on pressing, flare your elbows a little bit more versus tucking them will probably stretch out the pecs a little bit more than biasing the triceps. And as you said, pre-fatiguing can be great, but also just doing more isolation-based work. So just doing more flies, more or like isolated back work, lat prayers, face pulls, rear delt flies, like to be able to just get a bit more from your back. And then the only additional point to the back stuff that you mentioned is when you are when you are pulling, try and reduce kind of flexion, elbow flexion, so that you're not in such a like. If the elbow flexion is using the bicep, right? So if you have a larger angle there and you're just pulling through the elbow and like you've got a more 90-degree angle there, you're not going to be able to recruit as much bicep. And then just using straps or Versa grips, something like that, I think goes a long way. But yeah, nothing more to add apart from that, I think.
No, those were great nuances. Loved it. All right. So, underscore Manji Machine asks, have you ever coached a physique into shape that used CrossFit as their training modality, whether that's bulking or cutting?
Oh, this is a nice quick fire one. No.
No, me neither.
So I don't really have anything I can think to add to that. And that brings us pretty much to time, and we have
Yeah.
all the questions from this week that I requested still to go, which is fine. We got through quite a lot. Unless we want to get to one of them, we might have time for one.
I think the top question is more of a longer question though, so maybe we might want to save that for next time.
Let's save it for next time. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Nice.
There
Thank
we go.
you guys for listening. As always, thank you for your great questions. It's always a pleasure to get through these. As ever, if you do enjoy this, let us know in the comments. Leave us a nice review over on Spotify or whatever podcast platform you're on. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you don't know, we are coaches. We get questions like this all the time from our clients, and we educate them on a weekly basis. We have the opportunity to ask questions, and we love to dive into these sort of things. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for you to advance your knowledge and also physique. So if you are interested in coaching, you can get on a consultation call with anyone on the team, myself, Mike, or Ryan. Anything else you want to add, Mike?
Thank you guys for all of your recipes, and you are slowly educating me through your wisdom. recipes, current affairs, all that jazz. So I appreciate all of you guys helping me. So yeah, appreciate that. And no other points. Just continue to follow us, continue to engage with us because we appreciate you as a community. Yeah, we really appreciate all of you guys, and yeah, just engage with us. We love it, and yeah, we'll speak to you soon.
I have one more thing to add very quickly.
Yeah.
The Hypertrophic Time Chamber is
That's
where
it.
we get these questions. It's on my Instagram. It's the broadcast group. I know there's people like, I think, in Canada who can't access that, and other countries. So I think we've said it before on here, but I'm going to say it again. But if you can't join that group, or you can't access asking a question, feel free to DM me or Mike directly on Instagram, or you can drop a comment in here and one of us will see it. I'll have a special place in my Apple Notes, and I'm sure you will, Mike, or on a post-it note.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure we get to that question so that everyone can ask their questions. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Mike. We'll catch you soon.
Thank you,
Take care.
Steve. See you later.